Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Retire While You Work podcast. I'm joined today by Jerry Ann Agee, our Director of Operations, and David Adams, our founder and CEO. Going to be continuing on with our financial literacy theme this month and talking about lifestyle creep. This is something that we see with clients as incomes start to increase and you try to buy the bigger house, maybe keep up with the Joneses. And it's really something that can throw off a financial plan. It's important as you begin to make more money, you also balance out your savings and investments alongside of that. And so just wanted to touch on this topic. It's something that I think is pretty easy to fall into the trap on as, again, income increases and you see your friends making more money maybe, and you're trying to keep up with them. So great topic for us to discuss today. And anything to add here at the start from either of you?
I'd say, yeah, good to be here. Thanks for the intro, Miles. Very relevant topic. I'd say for reasons you said, but also just for us, like being here in Nashville and I know other cities as well, outside of just lifestyle creep. I mean, some of that comes from just inflation and just the price of houses. A house that was 500,000 at a 3% mortgage rate, payment is now 900,000 on a 6.5%. So right there, you have pretty major lifestyle creep without even really changing your lifestyle. So that's also a part of it that has to be factored in because it's still everything we look at in financial planning usually kind of stems around ratios and finding, hey, this is your income after tax, this percentage should maybe go towards housing, this amount towards savings, et cetera, et cetera. And also from the standpoint of distributions from a portfolio later in life, when you need to live on your money that you have invested, it's also important to stick with certain percentages on that. So that lifestyle creep, if it takes you above those numbers, that's when it can be a problem to the financial plan.
I mean, I was just telling them before we started recording that I'm pretty guilty of lifestyle creep. But here's kind of where I get on lifestyle creep when is it bad or when is it okay? And when, yes, we bought the new car, maybe spent more than we normally would have. We've started going on more expensive vacations over the years and stuff like that. But we have also continued to save into our 401ks and our joint account and our savings account. So we've still been hitting those goals, but then we've basically been spending everything else. So it's like, should we not have done that? Should we have been putting more away? I mean, I don't know.
That goes back to some of that's subjective. I think the part that's not subjective is yes, as long as you're not decreasing in theory the amount that you're saving. So if you were putting in 10% in your 401k, getting the employer match if you're lucky enough to have one, and then all of a sudden you got a raise and you drop that to 5%, that's a bad habit to start. But to Jerry Ann's point, if you're still, ideally you get a raise and maybe you go from 10% to 11% or 12%. But there is also something to say about, we can't take this with us. And we have our whole philosophy, retire while you work, and how money is really just a means to buy your time, meaning experiences and memories with people you love doing things you love. And so if all you do is, you work really hard and then you get a $5,000 raise one year and then you immediately just save that and your cost of living is going up and you're not really, rewarding yourself, that's not fun either. So there definitely is a balance. And after over 20 years of doing this, we've seen clients in both directions. And clients that are scared to spend more money. And so they're actually hoarding money and never really paying themselves for taking that dream trip after 5 years of working hard and getting, several different raises. And then there's people that, to the other extreme, maybe are spending it all and actually start going backwards on their saving plan. So yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. It is subjective. The truth is in the middle, but we don't want to be on either one of those extremes.
Yeah, and I think trying to keep, David, you mentioned like the ratios at the start. I think trying to keep those the same. So as your income's going up, just continue to save that 10, 15, 20% into investments. And naturally, that amount is going to continue to go up over time. And so if you can keep some of that the same, Jerry, and to your point, and to David's point, I think it's important to enjoy some of it and work hard. And you can't take it all with you. I mean, all the cliches that are out there, you can't take it all with you. So it's important to find that balance and that balance that works for you.
Yeah. And part of that goes back to, in the book that we, talk about with clients or the currency of time, we talk about, I saw early in my career, our my parents' generation, they worked till they were 65. They saved, pretty much every penny. And then now they had, let's just make it up, they had $1 million, they're 65, and they hadn't really, traveled and done a lot of things. And now all of a sudden, maybe their health isn't so good. And they kind of went in that direction where they didn't really get to enjoy the money. And it was more, they didn't really have a financial plan. It was just, hey, we got to live way beneath our means and we got to save a lot of money, because what if a Great Depression happens again? I feel like my generation and probably Jerry Ann's generation, we're in the middle. We're in the middle. We get both sides. We still know that that's important, but we've also seen people doing that. And we're like, man, we're not going to live to be 80 years old and not start spending any money till we're 70. So there's that kind of in between that our generation's been pretty good. And of course I'm generalizing. And then, to the millennial generation, where maybe they're better than our parents' generation about valuing experiences and all those things, but then maybe they're neglecting a financial plan, and maybe they're not saving anything early in the career. So, again, the truth is in the middle. And like Miles mentioned, like getting those ratios right, having a plan and somebody that's holding you accountable to the plan, so if you're on track. And what clients ask us all the time is, hey, how are we doing? And what they mean is, like, if the client's 50 years old, for your average 50-year-old client that's, making about what we're making, has a couple kids like we have, et cetera, are we kind of in the middle of what you see with clients, how much we have saved up? Are we doing really well? Are we way behind? And we try to give them.
I think a lot of people would be surprised by the averages too. Like maybe how low they actually, like what the average 40-year-old has saved up or the average 50-year-old has saved up.
Yeah, the averages would surprise you. When clients ask us that, they're usually talking about the averages we see, which, keep in mind, we're talking about people that are out there that have a wealth manager, which of course is not going to be the average across the country. I mean, the average, I haven't seen the numbers in a while, but let's just say for like an average 60-year-old, they may have, less than $100,000 or $50 to $100,000 of savings. And so that's average. But the average 60-year-old that's going to be with us or with the wealth advisor is going to be quite a bit higher than that. But still, that's something that we try to provide perspective to, so people know that if they're on the right track. And of course, it's different if you're making $75,000 a year versus making $1 million a year. We're going to kind of compare clients to what other clients making $1 million a year, or what they're spending, what is normal, which there's no exact normal, but we have enough data that we can kind of provide some insight on that.
Especially when our retired clients, when we start asking them, like, how much do you care how much you die with, I mean, and if they don't, then their plan, hey, spend more money. I mean, it's looking like you're in the good spot. But then the ones that want to leave a big legacy behind, those are the ones that we kind of have to keep a closer eye on. Their spending.
That's right. We talk about the three buckets and everything, and somebody has $3 million and they retire, and we're following the 4% distribution number that's kind of been around for a long time, which would say if you have $3 million and you're 60 years old, you should be able to pull out $120,000 a year, $10,000 a month, and in 30 years have about what you started with, probably more because you've averaged more, but it gives you kind of a buffer there. But then the other school of thought, to Jerry Ann's point, is there's a book called Die with Zero. I think it's by Bill Perkins, but it's basically, saying, well, what's the point in my example of, dying with $3 million? What if we, I'd rather pass away with $50,000 and know I, almost died bouncing my last check. A little extreme, but the point is every $100,000 we pass away with, unless we really need to leave it to our kids or whoever, is that many lost experiences that we could have had and we could have used that money for. So just that is something to think about. A lot of times clients, that $3 million, they're just so fixed on, we work so hard, we don't ever want to see that drop below 3 million. And that's just a behavioral finance, mindset called anchoring, where you just, and if it was $1 million, it'd be $1 million. It's just, we don't want to lose our principal. But the reality is they may have $1 million paid for a house. And, if we explain, what if over time, by age 90, you kind of slowly spent your money down and did all the things you wanted to do, passed away with $400,000, but your house was now worth $1.5 million and it's paid off. And that was your inheritance. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, that's more than enough. So we're trying to free them to think about it differently and say the old school way of financial planning is never dipping the principal. The new way of thinking about it is, okay, how much do we need to pass away with? What is the bigger picture here? because too many people have left millions and millions of dollars and with a very unclear estate plan, and then they have one child, and then they walk away with $6 million, and they don't have a plan. They haven't been educated on how to use it, and it can end up being a disaster. And so those are the kind of conversations that are worth having.
Yeah, that's good. What do you guys think it is that leads to lifestyle creep? Is it like trying to keep up with your friends, just buying the bigger house that you maybe don't need, unsure, like no plan, just don't know how to save money, so you just spend the money? Like, what do you think some of the biggest factors are that lead to it?
Yes, 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 all those things. And just, technology also keeps getting better and more interesting. So there's always some new gadget to buy. There's new stuff for homes. There's new appliances and new, like, just technology and stuff. I think it's just human nature. We fall into that. And then I think as your income goes up, sometimes the people that you spend time with, not always, but sometimes, depending on where you live, those people have similar incomes. And then somebody gets the new, $120,000 car, and you get inside it. Oh, this is amazing. I want to get that. I just think it's human nature.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think I've really tried to keep up with the Joneses, but I definitely like new things and the newest and the best. And that's kind of where, and go to, a all-inclusive resort versus driving to 30A it's just, yeah, it's just as your income rises that just you start experiencing different things, I think.
Like 30A slumming it, Jerian?
No, but driving there, I could go to
Driving
Mexico
down
to an
to
all-inclusive.
Beach.
Gotta get in your car.
Yeah, gotta get in my car, lug all my stuff to the beach.
And things like, I sit in different mastermind groups of different, economic statuses, and it's interesting. We have these conversations all the time, but it could even, you mentioned travel, but even like treating yourself to first class. Sometimes people, all of a sudden they're 50 years old and they're like, we got, a couple $1 million in the bank, and we're getting a little bit older. My back hurts, and God, this first class or this business class seat when we fly to Paris is really, really nice, but it's $6,000 instead of $1,100. That's hard to justify at a certain, place in your life financially. But then there becomes a place where you might say, you know what, that's a luxury I'm going to give to myself going forward. So I can speak from experience on that. That was something I had a hard time with the first time I flew business class. I was like, this is ridiculous. I can do anything. It was when I went to India. I was like, or Thailand. I was like, I can do anything for 24 hours. I mean, I'm not going to spend, $6,000 extra, whatever. And then you do, and you're like, oh, yep, this is nice.
Greatest thing ever.
Yeah, it just makes
I really think it. You don't dread traveling. You don't dread getting on the flight. We've done it once. And in my life, I've traveled first class once to Hawaii, and my kids were on the plane. And of course, we put them in the regular seats, and they're like, we've never flown first class. I was like, yeah, exactly. It's going to be a while.
This is also my first time.
Neither is mom.
Right.
He's 50 or whatever.
Right.
Or 30. Sorry, Jerian. 30.
Yeah, that's right. You got it right that time.
I think one thing that's interesting is all the show, like the people who maybe fall into lifestyle creep or spending more than they need to are some of the more unhappier than those who like keep the balance plan and keep the balanced budget, and the shiny new object or the shiny new car, the fun of that or whatever you want to call it, wears off pretty quickly. And then you're just here with maybe a big car payment or less cash on hand because you decided to go that route.
No, you never really, I mean, there's always something better. There's always something nicer. All of a sudden you start flying first class, and then one day somebody asks you on a NetJet or a private plane. And then that's a whole different, economic situation you need to have to justify that. So we all know, like, at the end of the day, happiness, comes from within. And the clients I've seen that have been, the happiest, I don't know if that's, or the most fulfilled, or the most, let me say, the most at peace financially, are the ones that say, now we value, like, and this is true for me. Like, I just value, if I want to go out to lunch or something and go with a friend or a client or something, I know I'm, even with prices of food going up double or whatever, like, I'm comfortable buying somebody's lunch. That doesn't, hurt me financially. That was a place for me that felt really good to get to. That just like I can pull out my credit card and pay for the lunch, whether it's $60 or $90 or whatever, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is. But I couldn't do that 10 years ago, and so that to me is more important than you know getting the next best thing or whatever. So, and when I have gotten a nice new thing, you're right, Miles. It's really nice for a little bit, and then it kind of wears off, and then you're kind of stuck with, oh, why did I spend all that money on that? Or I was fine with whatever car, the 4-year-old used car I had before. It's fine. It's just a car, and I don't drive it that much. So I think we all have to go, like, you treat yourself at first when you finally get where you can afford it. Then you start to learn like it's not really that great, and then you see some wealthy people out there that literally live in the same house they lived in 40 years ago. And
Well, I think that one of the things that with lifestyle creep when it's okay is, and we can just kind of wrap this up, I guess, is if you're paying yourself first, if you're taking care of yourself with your 401k or joint account, bucket two, whatever, and then you're still spending money and going on trips and everything, I think that's okay.
look, I called it the reverse budget to that point. If you don't want to sit there and balance a checkbook per se, like old school, and sit there and manage every penny, you could say, you know what, we were saving $1,000 a month. Now we got this raise. Let's try to save 1,500 a month. But then everything after that, assuming we've done that, we paid all the bills. If we've got an extra $5,000 a month left over and we spend it all, that's okay because we're doing the other things. Now, if we do it the other way, we don't have a plan and we just spend as much money as we want and say, oh, we have $200 left over, let's just save that. That doesn't work. Human nature says that does not work over time because people get behind. So pay yourself first. Absolutely. That will help. And then get with your wealth management team if you have one, and ask these questions and say, how am I doing? Like, what do you all usually see? Do you have any ratios that are you view as kind of being average and successful over the years, that are something just to give us a benchmark, versus us just kind of, putting our finger up in the wind and saying, this seems like enough. Yeah, those are the things I've seen. And then also doing things like having monthly investments on auto draft versus, trusting yourself to just write a check every quarter, every month. It just doesn't happen. I always tell people, like,
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest ones is automate any money, whether it's the 401k or just like a regular investment account, to automate it. That way, if you look back at the end of the year, you're not trying to, come bonus time stuff some away, because you're probably going to want to take a trip with that money, and you'll look back and realize, oh, we saved 10, 15, 20% of our income just by doing it systematically throughout the year, and not by doing it in big chunks sporadically.
and that also solves the problem of being an emotional investor, because then your dollar cost averaging into the market no matter what's going on, and not saying, okay, I got 100 grand now. Like, the market's scary right now. I don't really want to drop it in. So you end up just keeping it in cash and not getting it off the sidelines. People do that. So anything you can automate and put into a process and a plan, and then have somebody that, can hold you accountable and coach you through it, that's always going to be better, really, in anything in life. But certainly I can speak to wealth management and financial planning from our side. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully that helps. I mean, it's normal to face these struggles. Again, it's a human experience, and it's there's no perfect answer, but we definitely have seen things that have absolutely not worked, and we've seen where people spend too much, and we've seen the other side where people live in fear. You don't want to be either. Get a coach, get accountability, call us if we can help. And as always, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. And we'll get this one out here this week, and we'll see you guys next week. Any opinions are those of myself and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information contained in these podcasts do not purport to be a complete description of the securities market or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Any hypothetical examples are for illustration purposes only. Actual investor results will vary. Raymond James does not provide legal or tax services. Please discuss these matters with the appropriate professional.